The Veraxis Dominion had earned its place as the galaxy's most feared empire. Their reputation stretched far beyond the systems they ruled, a chilling warning carried by the silence of those they had annihilated. They were ruthless and efficient, an iron fist of power built on advanced technology and an unshakable belief in their superiority. Entire civilizations had crumbled before their fleets, their planets reduced to lifeless husks or enslaved outposts. To resist them was to court destruction. To surrender meant a different kind of death. When the Veraxis annexed the Narmith system, strategically close to Earth's borders, the galaxy barely noticed. The Dominion had done this countless times before. For Earth, however, it was a moment of existential dread. Humanity, new to the galactic stage, had avoided confrontation with the greater powers for as long as possible. But the Narmith system's fall left Earth vulnerable, its fledgling presence in the stars suddenly in the shadow of a predator. Within the halls of Earth's leadership, debate raged. War wasn't an option. The Veraxis Dominion's fleet outclassed humanity's in every measurable way. The very idea of negotiating with them was dismissed by many as naive. The Dominion had never entertained diplomacy, they took what they wanted and crushed anyone who resisted. Surrender, some argued, was the only path to survival. Others, quieter but no less grim, whispered that surrender would be a death sentence disguised as mercy. Elara Quinn listened to these arguments with the calm of someone accustomed to impossible situations. Her sharp green eyes scanned the room as Earth's senior leaders shouted over one another, the weight of their fear hanging heavy in the air. She had been summoned as a last resort, a Hail Mary option no one truly believed would work. "Send me," she said finally, cutting through the noise. The room fell silent. Elara wasn't a soldier or a politician, though she carried herself with the kind of confidence both envied. She was a diplomat, arguably the best humanity had ever produced. Her record was a string of improbable victories, brokering peace between warring factions, securing alliances thought impossible, and de-escalating conflicts others had written off as inevitable. But this mission wasn't just difficult, it bordered on suicidal. "You understand what you're asking for?" General Lawson, the grizzled head of Earth's defense force, leaned forward, his voice tinged with disbelief. "The Veraxis don't negotiate. They don't compromise. You'll be walking into the lion's den unarmed." "And yet," Elara replied smoothly, "here we are, discussing it anyway." "What does that tell you, General?" "That we're desperate," someone muttered. Elara allowed herself a small smile. Desperation isn't always a weakness. Sometimes, it's a catalyst. President Hayes, the leader of the council, finally spoke. His voice was weary but firm. "If we send you, we're placing the fate of humanity in your hands. Do you believe we can truly sway them?" "I don't know," Elara admitted, her honesty startling in its simplicity. "But I know that if we do nothing, we lose everything. If there's even the slightest chance, we owe it to ourselves to try." Hayes regarded her for a long moment before nodding. "You leave in 24 hours. The briefing was short but thorough. Elara absorbed every piece of intelligence about the Veraxis, what little there was. The Dominion operated with such precision and secrecy that even basic cultural details were scarce. What was known painted a bleak picture, a rigid hierarchy, a culture that revered strength above all else, and an empire unified by fear. Diplomacy wasn't just rare, it was seen as a sign of weakness. Elara's preparation was meticulous. She studied not only the Veraxis themselves but also the species they had subjugated, looking for patterns in their methods and vulnerabilities. She didn't rely on conventional strategies, the Dominion had likely encountered those before. Instead, she focused on what made humanity different. As she boarded the diplomatic shuttle bound for the Veraxis homeworld, the weight of her mission settled on her shoulders. Failure wouldn't just mean her death, it would mean the death of her people. But Elara wasn't the type to let fear dictate her actions. The shuttle's journey through hyperspace was unnervingly quiet. Elara used the time to reflect, running through potential scenarios in her mind. She knew she couldn't outgun or intimidate the Veraxis, but she could outthink them. Humanity's greatest strength, she believed, lay in its ability to adapt, to find unexpected solutions when all seemed lost. The first sight of the Veraxis homeworld was both awe-inspiring and oppressive. Massive black spires pierced the planet's atmosphere, glowing faintly with the energy of the Dominion's advanced technology. Orbiting stations swarmed with military ships, their movements precise and coordinated. Even from space, the planet exuded an air of absolute control. Illyra's shuttle was intercepted almost immediately. Veraxis ships flanked her on either side, their sleek designs both beautiful and menacing. A curt transmission ordered her to follow them to the surface. She complied without hesitation, her heart steady despite the circumstances. The landing platform was surrounded by towering structures, each more imposing than the last. Armed Veraxis soldiers waited for her, their expressions hidden behind gleaming helmets. They didn't speak as they escorted her into the depths of the High Council chamber. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, a vast, circular room lined with intricate carvings that told the story of the Dominion's conquests. At its center sat the High Council, a group of imposing figures cloaked in dark robes. Their leader, Supreme Commander Crofties, radiated authority, his presence as suffocating as the room's silence. Illyra stepped forward, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. She felt their eyes on her, sharp and unyielding, like predators sizing up prey. For a moment, the weight of their gaze was almost too much. But she reminded herself why she was here. "I am Illyra Quinn," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "Representative of the human race and envoy of Earth. I come to speak with the Veraxis Dominion." A low murmur rippled through the chamber, followed by harsh, guttural laughter from one of the council members. "Humans," another sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "Fragile, insignificant creatures. What could you possibly have to say that would interest us?" Illyra met their scorn with an unwavering gaze. "Perhaps more than you expect." The room fell silent again, the air thick with tension. Crofties leaned forward, his piercing eyes locked on hers. "You stand before the mightiest empire the galaxy has ever known, human. Speak carefully. Your next words may be your last." Illyra didn't flinch. "If your empire is as mighty as you claim, then you have nothing to fear from words. Or am I mistaken?" The chamber erupted into murmurs once more, but Crofties raised a hand, silencing them. He studied her for a long moment before gesturing for her to continue. The first step had been taken. The next would decide everything. Illyra stood in the heart of the Veraxis High Council chamber, her poise a deliberate act of defiance. She could feel the weight of their disdain pressing down on her, the palpable air of superiority they exuded. They wanted her to falter, to show fear. But she knew better than to play into their hands. "Humanity comes not as a threat," Illyra began, her voice calm yet firm, "but as a potential ally. You dominate through strength, but strength alone does not sustain empires. Collaboration does." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by a sharp, disdainful laugh from one of the council members. "Collaboration? Is this your grand offer? Weakness dressed as wisdom?" Illyra allowed the insult to hang in the air, unflinching. "Strength unchecked becomes brittle. Empires fall when they cannot adapt. Your dominion is unmatched in power, yes, but power without perspective is a trap. And history, as I'm sure you're aware, is filled with examples of those who thought themselves invincible." The room darkened slightly as the council leaned forward. A flicker of interest passed through the group, though most still regarded her as a nuisance, an insect buzzing in their ears. It wasn't until Supreme Strategist Lord Zerion spoke that the air shifted. "Tell me, human," Zerion said, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "Do you truly believe that words can sway the unshakable? That logic can unmake fear?" Illyra turned to him, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "Words are the foundation of every great movement. Fear can unify, but it also creates fractures. And logic? Logic is what turns fractures into change." Zerion tilted his head slightly, a gesture more calculated than curious. "Bold claims. But you are surrounded by those who see you as insignificant, whose systems of control are centuries in the making. Why, then, should we waste time entertaining the notions of a fledgling species? Elara stepped closer, defying the unspoken rules of distance. Because insignificance breeds innovation. Humans thrive in chaos. We've survived against odds far greater than this moment. What you call weakness, we call adaptability. Her words landed harder than the council expected. For the first time, there was a pause, an unspoken acknowledgement that her perspective was not entirely without merit. Zerion, however, remained impassive. Adaptability may save a single species. It does not sustain empires. Your empire is sustained by fear, Elara countered. And fear is a powerful motivator until it turns inward. Tell me, strategist, how many of your people truly believe in the Dominion's strength, and how many follow because they have no choice? How many leaders have fallen to fear of their subordinates rather than their enemies? The murmur that rippled through the chamber was subtle but telling. Elara pressed on. The cracks may not be visible yet, but they're there. Power built on fear is inherently fragile. And if you continue on this path, those cracks will spread. Your empire will not collapse because of an external threat. It will collapse under its own weight. Zerion's gaze sharpened. You speak as though you understand the Dominion. But your knowledge is limited, human. Do not presume to lecture us on our own systems. I don't presume. I observe, Elara replied, her tone unwavering. Your subjugation of other species is efficient, but it suppresses individuality. You demand conformity, and in doing so, you suppress creativity. What happens when a problem arises that brute force cannot solve? What happens when your enemies begin to think in ways you cannot predict? The room grew colder, the weight of her words settling over the council. For a species that prided itself on control, the idea of unpredictability was an uncomfortable truth they rarely acknowledged. Zerion leaned back, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. You're clever. I'll grant you that. But cleverness does not guarantee survival. You propose that we abandon what has made us strong in favor of, what? Creativity? Cooperation? These are luxuries, not necessities. Elara's expression softened, though her resolve remained sharp. Cooperation isn't a luxury. It's a survival strategy. The most resilient systems in nature are those built on mutual benefit. Humanity understands this because we've lived it. We've fought wars, yes, but we've also learned to work together, to find strength in diversity. That's what makes us dangerous, not our weapons, but our capacity to think beyond ourselves. The chamber was silent again, but this time, it wasn't dismissive. There was tension, yes, but also curiosity, a flicker of doubt that Elara had been waiting for. She turned her attention back to Zerion. I'm not here to challenge your strength, she said. I'm here to offer you something greater, resilience. Empires built on fear eventually collapse. But those built on trust, on collaboration, those endure. Zerion regarded her carefully, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. You claim to bring resilience. Yet your species is young, untested. What proof can you offer that humanity has anything of value to give the Dominion? Elara's lips curved into a small smile. Proof doesn't come from words alone, strategist. It comes from actions. Give me the chance to prove humanity's worth, not as conquerors, but as allies. Let us show you what adaptability looks like. The council exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from skepticism to intrigue. Zerion's gaze remained fixed on Elara, his mind clearly working through the implications of her words. You speak boldly for someone with so little leverage, he said finally. But boldness alone will not save your species. Still, you've managed to accomplish what few have, you've piqued my interest. Elara inclined her head slightly. Interest is the first step toward understanding. Zerion's faint smile returned, though there was a sharpness to it. Be careful, human. Understanding can be a double-edged sword. Without another word, he gestured to the guards. take her to the secondary chambers. We will deliberate. As Alara was escorted out, she could feel the eyes of the council on her, their scrutiny a tangible weight. But she didn't falter. The first barrier had been breached. Now, the real work would begin. Alara sat in the sterile chamber where the Veraxis had confined her. The room was sparse, almost mechanical in design, with nothing that could offer comfort or distraction. It was an intentional move, meant to unnerve her, to remind her that she was in their domain. She leaned back, exuding a calm she didn't entirely feel. Every second of silence, every delay in their response, was part of the test. It wasn't long before the door slid open, revealing a tall figure clad in the distinctive black and silver of the Dominion's highest ranks. Lord Zerion stepped inside, his movements deliberate, his presence as commanding as ever. He carried no weapons, but his very demeanor was a weapon in itself, honed to perfection over decades of strategic dominance. "You've caused quite the stir," he began, his tone measured. "The council is divided. Some believe your words are nothing more than the desperate ramblings of a species on the brink of annihilation. Others are less certain." Alara met his gaze, unflinching. "Uncertainty is a start. It's better than blind conviction." Zerion studied her for a moment before taking a seat across from her. There was a new intensity in his eyes, a mix of curiosity and calculation. "Tell me, Alara Quinn. What is it that makes you so certain of humanity's value? Do you believe that adaptability and cleverness alone are enough to challenge an empire like ours?" "It's not just about adaptability," Alara replied. "It's about perspective. Empires like yours operate on absolutes, strength, dominance, control. But humanity thrives in the gray areas, the spaces where rules bend and rigidity breaks. That's where innovation happens. It's why we've survived as long as we have, despite our limitations." Zerion's lips pressed into a thin line. Innovation is a tool, not a foundation. And tools can be taken, replicated, or destroyed. Only if you understand the mind behind the tool, Alara countered. And that's the problem with the Dominion. You've built a system that crushes individuality, that punishes deviation. Creativity doesn't thrive under fear, it withers. And without it, you're vulnerable to the unexpected. Zerion leaned forward slightly, his interest apparent despite his stoic facade. "You speak of creativity as though it is a strength. But it is also a risk. It breeds dissent, chaos. It undermines order." "It can," Alara admitted. "But it also drives progress. Without dissent, there's no growth. Without chaos, there's no change. The Dominion's strength lies in its order, yes, but order isn't sustainable without flexibility. It's the balance between the two that ensures survival." For the first time, Zerion's expression flickered with something akin to doubt. He was a man who prided himself on understanding his enemies, on anticipating every move before it was made. But Alara wasn't behaving like any adversary he'd faced before. She wasn't threatening him, wasn't trying to overpower him. She was offering something far more dangerous, a new way of thinking. "And what of loyalty?" he asked. "The Dominion thrives because its people are unified in purpose. Would you have us sacrifice that unity for the sake of your so-called creativity?" "Unity doesn't have to mean conformity," Alara said. "In fact, the strongest forms of unity come from embracing differences, not suppressing them. Humanity is far from perfect, we argue, we fight, we disagree. But that's also what makes us strong. We learn from those disagreements. We grow because of them." Zerion's gaze was piercing, his silence heavy with contemplation. Alara could see the conflict in his eyes, the tug-of-war between his loyalty to the Dominion's principles and the undeniable logic of her words. "You make a compelling argument," he said finally. "But words alone are not enough. The Dominion is not an idea to be debated. It is a force. A reality. And realities do not change without consequences." Alara leaned forward, her voice steady and firm. "Change always comes with consequences. The question is whether you face those consequences now, on your terms, or later, when they're beyond your control. The Dominion's strength is undeniable, but strength without adaptability is a ticking clock. Sooner or later, something will break it. Whether that's humanity or something else, it's inevitable. Zerion's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he rose from his seat, pacing the room with the deliberate movements of someone weighing a decision of immense consequence. Your argument is bold, but boldness can be a mask for desperation, he said at last. You claim to see the cracks in our empire, but what of your own? Humanity is fragile, divided. You lack the discipline and unity that have made the Dominion what it is. How can you offer us what you do not possess yourselves? Illyra's lips curved into a small smile. You're right, humanity isn't perfect. We're flawed, impulsive, and often our own worst enemies. But those flaws are also our greatest strength. They force us to adapt, to innovate, to find solutions where none seem to exist. It's that imperfection that makes us resilient. Zerion stopped pacing, turning to face her fully. There was something new in his expression, an edge of respect mingled with the ever-present skepticism. You've given me much to consider, he said. But consideration does not equate to agreement. If you wish to prove your worth, you'll need more than words. Illyra stood, meeting his gaze with unwavering resolve. Then give me the chance to prove it. Let humanity show you what we're capable of, not as subordinates, but as equals. The room fell silent, the weight of her challenge hanging in the air. Zerion regarded her for a long moment before nodding. Very well. But understand this, if you fail, your species will not get another chance. I understand, Illyra said simply. As Zerion exited the room, leaving her alone once more, Illyra allowed herself a moment to breathe. The hardest part was still ahead, but she had taken another step forward. And in a game as high-stakes as this, every step mattered. The council chamber was alive with tension as Illyra stood once again before the Veraxis High Council. This time, however, the atmosphere had shifted. There was no laughter, no dismissive scoffs. Every member present now regarded her with a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and something she hadn't seen before, unease. She had done what few ever managed, she had made them listen. Lord Zerion entered the chamber, his imposing figure commanding immediate attention. His eyes found Illyra's as he took his place, and for a moment, there was no hostility, only a quiet intensity. He had spent hours deliberating with the council, dissecting every word she had spoken, every argument she had made. Now, the time for talk was over. Illyra Quinn, Zerion began, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. You have presented humanity as a species of potential, one capable of offering the Dominion something it does not possess. Creativity. Resilience. Adaptability. These are bold claims, but boldness alone is not enough to reshape an empire. Now, you must prove it. Illyra nodded, her expression calm but resolute. I understand. But proving it doesn't rest on my shoulders alone. It rests on yours as well. You've seen the cracks in your system, even if you refuse to name them. You've felt the weight of holding an empire together through sheer force. You know this path can't last forever. Zerion's gaze darkened, though not with anger. Her words had struck a nerve, and she knew it. And what do you propose? He asked, his tone careful. That we abandon the very foundation of what makes us strong. That we trade control for chaos? Not chaos, Illyra said firmly. Evolution. You pride yourselves on strength, but strength is meaningless if it can't adapt. The Dominion's power doesn't have to be diminished, it can be redirected. You can still lead, but lead differently. Show your people that fear isn't the only way to unite them. The council stirred, uneasy murmurs rippling through the chamber. The concept was foreign, even threatening, to an empire built on centuries of domination. But Illyra pressed on, her voice unwavering. You've conquered countless worlds, subjugated entire civilizations, and yet your empire is stagnating. You fear rebellion, insurrection, the very things your strength was meant to suppress. But what if, instead of suppressing individuality, you embraced it? What if you allowed your people to innovate, to contribute their ideas without fear of reprisal? You would create a system that is not only strong but unbreakable. Zerion's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. He was listening, truly listening, and Alara could see the wheels turning in his mind. You call humanity young, untested, she continued. And you're right. We are. But that's what makes us valuable. We see possibilities where others see limitations. We find solutions where others see only problems. And we've learned that true strength doesn't come from crushing opposition, it comes from inspiring loyalty. From giving people a reason to stand with you, not against you. The murmurs grew louder, some council members clearly uncomfortable, others visibly intrigued. One finally spoke, a tall, severe-looking figure whose voice carried a sharp edge. And what guarantees do you offer, human? Words are easy. Promises are hollow. How do we know that humanity will not exploit this cooperation you propose to undermine the dominion from within? Alara met the speaker's gaze directly. You don't. Trust is a risk, it always is. But the alternative is stagnation, collapse. You've built an empire so strong that no external force can break it, but that doesn't mean it's invincible. The cracks are already forming. I'm offering you a way to fortify it, to make it stronger than it's ever been. Not through fear, but through collaboration. Zerion held up a hand, silencing the chamber. His expression was unreadable as he turned back to Alara. You paint a compelling vision, one that is unsettling to many here. But change of this magnitude does not come without conflict. You are asking us to unmake the very fabric of our existence. Do you understand the risk you're taking? Alara's voice softened, though her resolve remained steadfast. I do. Change is never easy, and it's never without risk. But the greatest risk of all is doing nothing. The Dominion is at a crossroads, whether you acknowledge it or not. You can either adapt and grow, or you can cling to the past and crumble under its weight. The choice is yours. For a long moment, the chamber was silent, the weight of her words pressing down on everyone present. Then Zerion spoke, his tone measured but heavy with significance. You are bold, Alara Quinn. And boldness is a rare quality among those who face the Dominion. You have given us much to consider. But know this, the path you propose will not be decided lightly. It will require more than rhetoric. It will require proof. Alara inclined her head. Then give me the opportunity to provide that proof. Let humanity work with the Dominion, not against it. Let us show you what we're capable of. If we fail, then you lose nothing. But if we succeed, you gain everything. Zerion studied her for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he turned to the council. Deliberate. But understand this, the path forward will not be one of half measures. If we choose this, it will be a new chapter for the Dominion, one that will require courage, not fear. The council erupted into debate, their voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony of argument and counterargument. Alara stepped back, allowing the storm to rage around her. She had done all she could. Now, the decision lay in their hands. Hours passed before the chamber finally quieted. Zerion rose, his expression grave but resolute. Alara Quinn. The council has reached a decision. She held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. We will not dismantle the Dominion, Zerion said. But we will allow humanity to demonstrate the value of its ideas. You will be given a limited opportunity to prove your worth. If you succeed, the Dominion may consider further integration of your principles. If you fail. His voice trailed off, the implication clear. Alara nodded, a small smile breaking through her composure. Then let's make history together. Zerion's gaze softened, ever so slightly. History is written by those who dare. Do not disappoint us, human. As she left the chamber, the weight of the moment settled over her. This was only the beginning, but it was a beginning no one had thought possible. Humanity had taken its first step toward redefining the galaxy, not through war, but through the power of ideas.